Decision time, Malians brave heavy downpour to pick the new leaders in a presidential runoff. Eyeing a comeback, deposed CAR leader Francois Bozizé hints of plans to return to power. And taking stock, Kenya Airways takes the hit from Monday's airport inferno. You're watching Africa Live. Hello and thank you for joining us. I'm Penina Karibe in Nairobi with these other stories. Investigations implicate militant group Al-Shabaab in the theft of aid in Somalia. And Trinidad sprinter Kellyanne Baptiste becomes the latest doping casualty. Malians headed to the polls again on Sunday for the decisive round of presidential elections intended to restore peace and stability to the West African country. Mali was scarred by a coup and an Islamist uprising in the north that triggered French military intervention. Sunday's election should unlock some $4 billion in aid and allow France to hand responsibility for maintaining security to a 12,600-strong UN peacekeeping mission being deployed. CCTV's Kate Parkinson reports from Mali's capital, Bamako.
It was a rainy start to the day in Bamako, but undeterred by the bad weather, these voters trudged through the mud to cast their votes. Two political heavyweights are in the last leg of the presidential race, former Prime Minister Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta and ex-Finance Minister Soumaïla Cissé. Keïta's reputation for toughness has earned him support, and he's tipped to win.
What I'm waiting for from IBK is firstly to find a solution as fast as possible for the problem in the north. Also, to get the Malian administration back to work and reorganize it, especially to tackle with youth unemployment. That is why I'm voting for IBK this morning.
Whatever the outcome, the hope among voters is that this election is the beginning of a new chapter for Mali.
What you're expecting from this election is more security, a stronger army, stronger institutions and less corruptions for our country, so that what happened can never happen again.
Vote counting is a slow process in Mali, and it's possible the final results of this second round won't be announced before Friday. But whoever is victorious, whether it's Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta or Soumaïla Cissé, the hope is that Mali's next president will move the country out of this period of political turmoil and restore peace, stability and unity. Kate Parkinson, CCTV, Bamako.
And while voting in the presidential runoff was underway in Mali, in Senegal, the Malian community also turned out to vote in the capital Dakar and across the whole country. CCTV's Desiree Cannon has more.
Malian nationals living in Senegal cast their ballot today for what they call an historical election to choose a new president and determine the direction of their nation. Voters say they expect a lot from this election.
We are hopeful that a democratic elected president will come out of this election, and this president will be able to address the crisis in northern and southern Mali and tackle youth unemployment.
I think this election is the most successful and fair in Mali, and I'm very happy and proud of the way it's being conducted.
The city of Dakar alone has about 24 polling stations for 6,888 voters. Malian nationals from Cape Verde are also voting in Senegal, making for a total of at least 10,037 registered voters, including those from Gambia and Guinea-Bissau. Most voters here hope the new Malian president will make a clean break with past ways of governing and chart a new course for their country's democracy. For the occasion, Mali embassy in Dakar has been used as a polling station. The ambassador welcomes the successful conduct of the polls.
All the polling stations are currently operating as expected, and no incident has been reported yet. We welcome this success. This was made possible thanks to Senegal authorities and the good behavior of voters who fully understood the issue of this election.
as they expressed their choice between former Prime Minister Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta and former Foreign Minister Soumaïla Cissé, voters here in Senegal also hope the two contestants will accept the outcome from the ballot box for a united and peaceful Mali. Désiré Kano, CCTV, Dakar, Senegal.
Mali holds the second round of its presidential election on Sunday after more than a year of turmoil, including a coup and a French-led military intervention to free the north from al-Qaeda-allied Islamist rebels. Almost 7 million Malians were expected to cast their vote today in the second round of Mali's first election since last year's coup. Now, voters had a choice between former Prime Minister Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta and ex-Finance Minister Soumaïla Cissé. Now, here are some details on those two candidates. Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta was born in Koutiala in southern Mali, January 29, 1945. Universally, he is known as IBK. Now, Keïta hails from the majority Bambara ethnic group. He studied political science and international relations at Paris-Sorbonne University. Keïta won the first round with nearly 40% of the vote. He held the post of Prime Minister from 1994 to the year 2000. Former head of the National Assembly, and he was also Prime Minister. He returned to Mali in 1986 to join the underground pro-democracy movement, and he was also a founding member of the Adema party. Keïta has avoided criticizing the leaders of the recent coup. Now, Soumaïla Cissé, on the other hand, was born December 20th, 1949. He is a native of Timbuktu region. A software engineer by training, he was a top presidency official. He served as a minister for much of the 1990s, and he was in charge of the West African Monetary Union for 7 years. Cissé has earned respect as an economist. He has condemned the recent military coup in Mali. All right, so let's take a look now at how the process went. CCTV's Kate Parkinson joins us live from Mali's capital, Bamako. Kate, good to have you with us. So how was the turnout today, and has voting closed?
The polling stations are due to close at 6 o'clock local time, which is in just under an hour, but there is a possibility that some polling stations will stay open a little bit longer. That's because the day started here in Bamako with torrential rain, and that meant some polling stations were a little bit late opening, and the head of the National Independent Election Commission has said that there is a possibility that some polling stations will be closing a little bit late because of that. Now, despite the torrential downpour that really did mean it was a slow start to the day, we were up at the crack of dawn when the polling stations opened, and it was a trickle of people braving the terrible weather to come and cast their votes. But as the rain subsided and the sunshine came out, it was getting a lot busier. It is a little early, however, to talk about voter turnout. We should have an idea of estimated figures when the polling stations have closed, but it is hoped that the voter turnout will be as high as it was in the first round. We saw record high voter turnout, 49%. That's unprecedented here in Mali in the first round, and it's certainly the hope and also the expectation that there will be a similar high turnout for this second round, as people here really do seem engaged in the political process and keen to have their vote count as Mali tries to put this period of terrible turmoil, political crisis behind it and move forward, taking itself into a new chapter.
And Kate, so far, what have observers been saying about today's process?
Well, again, it's a little early in the process to have a clear idea from the observers. There are many observers here in Mali. The European Union have a mission of around 100 observers. They're only in the south of the country, though, the southern regions, where the majority of the electorate is. But it's in the northern regions that the tensions were earlier this year. These were the areas the regions of Timbuktu, Gao and Kidal, where they were under the occupation of Islamist rebels for 10 months last year, only pushed out by that French-led intervention which was launched in January. There are no observers in the north, so it's hard to get a clear picture at this stage, but generally the mood among the observers is a positive one. People are saying that these elections are transparent, that they are being run properly. And this is despite the fact that Soumaila Cissé said following the first round of the vote, he said there was voting irregularities and claimed there was election fraud in some places. But these charges were rejected by the Constitutional Court, and really the international observers, the EU observers, the African Union observers are saying that this is a well-run election, and that there is hope that any irregularities identified in the first round, for example, there was a very high number of ballots that were declared void, and the hope is that in the second round people will have a better understanding of how to properly fill out their voting cards, and likewise people at the voting stations, the officials will have a better idea of how to identify a properly filled in ballot form and an improperly one. And so the hope is that these kind of irregularities will have been ironed out for this second round.
All right, Kate, let's leave it there for now. Thank you very much for those insights. Kate Parkinson, live for us in Bamako. Now, deposed former Central African Republic President Francois Bozizé has said he still nurtures ambitions of returning to power, ending months of silence since he was ousted by rebel forces in March. Bozizé, who ruled the mineral-rich former French colony for a decade, fled to Cameroon after rebels overthrew his government and captured the riverside capital Bangui. In an interview with Radio France International, broadcast on Saturday, Bozizé said he had formed, along with some compatriots, a political organization called the Front for the Return of Constitutional Order in CAR, or FROCA. The new government, headed by interim President Michel Djotodia, the head of the Seleka rebels, has issued an arrest warrant against Bozizé, accusing him of crimes against humanity and incitement to genocide. The rebellion in landlocked CAR, one of the poorest places on earth, it triggered a humanitarian crisis after many aid groups and UN agencies pulled out, leaving its 4.5 million inhabitants to fend for themselves. You're watching Africa Live. Let's take a break. Coming up. Taking stock, Kenya Airways takes the heat from Monday's airport in Fano. And investigations implicate militant group Al-Shabaab in the theft of aid in Somalia. Now, Kenya Airways has lost over $4 million in revenues following the fire that razed the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. The airline's chief executive, Titus Naikuni, has said. The airline also said it is sending Boeing 777 to go for the 492 passengers stranded in Hong Kong on Monday as the airport resumes operations. Temporary international arrivals terminal at State Pavilion will start functioning from Monday, while Unit 2 for international departures will resume operations from Wednesday. Kenya Airports Authority admits it lost about 60% in advertising revenues and concession businesses, but cannot quantify for now. Investigators are yet to identify the exact cause of the fire, which forced the airport, one of the busiest in Africa, to shut down. It's been 2 years now since the famine that ravaged Somalia, and more than 250,000 people died and many more were displaced. The story has long slipped from the headlines, but for many, the struggle for survival goes on. Mohamed Hirmogi with more details.
The drought of 2011 affected people across the Horn of Africa, but Somalia was hardest hit, and 2 years on, many are still suffering. Many still live in camps in the capital. People like Amina Muse, who battles daily to care for her 15 children. At the height of the crisis, various agencies were flying in aid, but people in the camp say there have been no fresh supplies or support for the past year.
We need aid. We have no food and shelter. We need to be supported to provide care for our children because we have no means for doing so.
The situation is far worse outside Mogadishu, where the presence of Al-Qaeda-linked Al-Shabaab can hinder humanitarian access.
There are better access compared to a few years ago in some of the cities, but the countryside in general in south-central Somalia is still extremely difficult, to access.
The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs estimates 1 million Somalis need urgent humanitarian aid, and a further 1.7 million need sustained support. The humanitarian need for food aid in this country still remains immense, and the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs is now seeking for more international help for Somalia. Mohammed Hirmoge, CCTV, Mogadishu.
Reports now emerging show that members of the Al-Shabaab Islamist group stole British government-funded humanitarian materials and supplies in Somalia worth $750,000. The theft, revealed in the fine print of the Department for International Development's annual accounts on Sunday, is likely to fuel concerns about how Britain is spending its foreign aid at a time of budget cuts at home. Let's discuss this further. We're joined by CCTV's Mohammed Hirmoge live in Mogadishu. So, Hirmoge, how have these reports been received there in Somalia by government and even those who are to benefit from these supplies?
It emerges that the UK's DFID, Department for International Development accounts, have established that aid supplies from the UK worth almost £500,000 have been either stolen or confiscated by the Al-Shabaab between November 2011 and February 2012 in southern Somalia. Well, there has not been any official communication from the government with regard to that until now here in Mogadishu, but it appears that the public are saying the report looks quite inconclusive, because they're saying where exactly in southern Somalia did this theft take place, how many warehouses were involved, and what amount in quantity of food aid and grains have been stolen. Such are the questions people are asking over here. But even though at the time of the said theft, the transitional federal administration has been in place, the people here say the onus is still on the government of the day to take charge and give explanations for this theft. Penina.
And Hirmoge, just like you said in your earlier report, Somalia is still in need of this humanitarian support. But has this been the trend where relief supplies are easily stolen?
Yeah, Penina, that has been the trend at the height of the 2011 famine, where food aid and supplies were stolen and again resold in the streets of Mogadishu within hours. Well, for a country that has been in conflict, the rule of law is quite hard to maintain, and it therefore emerged that as humanitarian agencies served people, starving women and children, power groups emerged with force and made profit out of the disaster. Therefore, we can say that not only Al-Shabaab but unscrupulous businessmen made a business bonanza out of the crisis of 2011.
And finally here, Moge, what measures have been put in place by the government, if at all, and even involved parties to mitigate or eliminate such cases?
The government at the moment cannot put any control in southern Somalia. The government has no capacity there. Southern Somalia is still not under the control of the federal administration in Mogadishu. While still at the time of the said theft, the Transitional Federal Authority could not access southern Somalia, for South Central Somalia has been and still remains a stronghold of the Al-Qaeda-linked Al-Shabaab members. And therefore, whatever controls the government of Mogadishu can today extend is faced with jurisdiction hurdles, for the government does not control even today neither the north nor the south of Somalia.
All right, Hirmoge, thanks for joining us. Mohammed Hirmoge live for us in Mogadishu. Now, Mozambique is poised to move into the vehicle assembly and export market. The Southern African nation is building its first ever car factory in a joint venture with a Chinese firm, which may create some 3,000 jobs. CCTV's Julie Shire reports.
It is here just on the outskirts of Maputo that we find the first vehicle factory being built in Mozambique. and it will be ready by the end of this year. Soon, Machedi hopes to be assembling 30,000 cars, trucks and buses per year to be sold to the local market.
Machedi is a new Mozambican brand, the product of a pact between the government here and Shanghai-based investment company China Tongjian.
It will promote the country's and Africa's economy and also solve unemployment. It's not a short-term project, it's a project for the public good. It will definitely contribute a lot for the African economy.
The investment is worth $150 million. Machedi is taking advantage of incentives under an industrial free zone scheme, which is designed to revive this area. The factory brings a big boost for local employment and for the quality of transport in Mozambique, and it also will contribute with valuable foreign exchange.
That can bring a very good input, not just for Mozambique, but also for the region as well, because the main purpose under the industrial free zone scheme is to export at least 75% of these vehicles to be assembled here in Mozambique.
The first vehicles are due to come off the production line in just a few months. At full capacity, Machedi could turn out 100,000 vehicles a year. Julie Shire, CCTV, in Matola, Mozambique.
Let's take another break straight ahead. Trinidad sprinter Kellyanne Baptiste becomes the latest doping casualty.
Your Excellency, this is a surprise. Welcome. What do you mean we have no money? I need at least $1 million for intelligence mission immediately.
Everybody I can say knew about Idi Amin.
The more he felt insecure, the more ruthless he became.
To the world, Idi Amin is the embodiment of all that's dark and almost animal-like that came out of Africa.
He used to kill people, that man. Whoever could come against him, he would just kill.
To sports now, when Manchester United wins their first trophy in David Moyes' era after the Red Devils beat Wigan Athletic 2-0 in the FA Community Shield at Wembley on Sunday. United striker Robin van Persie took just 6 minutes to open his account for the new season, steering a powerful header into the corner from Patrice Evra's clipped cross. And in the second half, Wigan looked more assured in possession, and Owen Quell upped their pressing, but it was not long before Van Persie struck again, scoring for the United in the 59th minute. Victory over Wigan gives United the first piece of silverware this new season. United will face a Stunner test at Swansea on Saturday, while for Wigan it is back to life in the second tier at Bournemouth. All right, 2 athletes from Trinidad and Tobago team were dropped from the World Athletics Championships in Moscow after allegations that they failed the drugs test. The Trinidad Express newspaper reported on Saturday that Kellyanne Baptiste, who won a World 100 meters bronze medal in 2011 and was a real prospect for Moscow, had tested positive for a banned substance. Trinidad and Tobago officials would not comment on the allegations, but confirmed that Baptiste and fellow sprinter Semoy Hackett will not participate in the Worlds. Leading Jamaican women sprinters Sharon Simpson and Veronica Campbell-Brown also tested positive in the lead-up to Moscow Championships.
Unfortunately, all these issues is kind of taken away from what we're doing as athletes, and I'm hoping that at the end of this World Championship we'll be remembered for our performances and not for doping.
Top seed Serena Williams advanced to the Rogers Cup final on Saturday night, beating third-seeded Agnieszka Radwanska of Poland 7-6, 6-4. Serena has never lost to Poland's Radwanska in 6 meetings, including last year's Wimbledon. The 2001 and 2011 Rogers Cup champion will play for the title against unseeded Romania's Sorana Cristea on Sunday, who defeated fourth-seeded Li Na of China in the semi-final. Li, who was runner-up to Petra Vitova in Montreal last year, trailed sister for most of the first set. Away from sports now, and Rwanda has one of the fastest growing economies in Africa. But 19 years after the genocide, poverty and overcrowding are ongoing problems. Life in the streets is quite difficult, but many children end up in the street because they have nobody to care for them. Others have become victims of poverty, leaving their families in the hope to find more happiness in the streets of the city or simply to have something to eat every day. But all hope is not lost. Fidesco, a Rwandan shelter home, takes in these street kids, and through a partnership with the American Rebecca Davis Dance Company, they help integrate these young men into the society through dance.
Nabyatanye n'umwana mama wanjye amajije gupfa abaravuze ati urabiho tuzahorera mu ijuru.
With no father to support him, Eric went to the countryside to look for food for himself and his mother. But when, after 3 days, he got home to their hut, he found his mother dead. His relatives rejected him, and at the age of 12, Eric had no one to take care of him. He decided to go to Kigali, the capital city of Rwanda, begging on the streets to survive. 2 years later, Fidesco took him in.
We look to children who had big problems in their families and who have the will to quit the street.
Fidesco gives the boys temporary shelter. Fidesco was privileged to partner with the Rebecca Davis Dance Company, RDDC, which trains choreography, and through this dance program they help integrate street children into the society. Eric was the first student in the dance group. His great talent in dance brought out the happy side of him.
Numva simbese mu maraso yanjye numva ashyushye numva nuko yumva ntabwo ngikimva yuko nkikiri imfubyi nimva yuko ndi umuntu mu bandi.
RDDC also raises funds for few best dancers to leave Fidesco and study full-time in school.
Kubyina nabifatagamo nk'ibintu bisanzwe nko gukina umupira, ariko nagize ngo mbona arimo aragenda abikurikiza, mbonye bamujyanye ku ishuri ndavuga ati burya bya bindi napingaga ni byiza.
Trick is also another child in the shelter home who months and months of training got him an education scholarship to his favorite school. Patrick joined the streets when his father, whom he calls a womanizer, kicked them out of their home. The two boys are taking the future with both hands, and though they may have been in the streets for a long time, they're glad to find a haven and hope through dance.
I am not changing these children's lives. What I am doing is trying to create an environment where these children believe in themselves so that they can change their own lives. And as an outsider, that's the most I'm ever going to accomplish. However, if I accomplish that, I feel satisfied in my own life.
And that's it on Africa Live tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Penina Karibe. Stay tuned for Faces of Africa.